UK has been quietly planning to freeze your savings account, and it is in line with what we saw with the EU just so recently. But even if you are not in the EU or the UK, you should be concerned because this is going global, even potentially to the United States. We're going to get into all of this here today, but first let's dive in to the plan from the UK to quote executing bail in guide from the Bank of England. This started back in 2021, where they even lined out the plan step by step. And it is in line with what we have potentially been seeing from the UK government when it comes to absolute censorship, selling off their Bitcoin, and everything else. All of their ideologies are just coming to light, and millionaires are flocking out of the UK at a faster rate than anybody thought possible. But first, let's get into what I was talking about here a little bit earlier, where they were talking about the Online Safety Act. Oh, they're vowing to repeal this borderline dystopian. Yeah. Whatever you say, that they're trying to actually repeal all this. In my opinion, it's not even close. They want to go deeper and deeper into all of this if we just read in between the lines. But the reform from the UK has promised to repeal this act, arguing that it measures they intend to push social media companies to limit false and potentially harmful content, which instead would make UK a borderline dystopian state. What did we see not too long ago? Right? The EU, they wanted to channel retail savings and capital markets in order to develop and finance EU priorities. What did we see not too long ago from the UK? A man who used Facebook to encourage rioting was jailed, right? What did we see not too long ago from the UK? There were riots. They were arrested for posting during riots. Will it change anything? So this was all within the past year, 6 to 12 months. And even during this cerveza sickness that we saw not too long ago, social media companies were known for censoring and, going through everything with that. And now we're seeing 2.0 of that right now, with now going against major governments and everything going forward. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down. This seems to be accelerating at a very rapid pace, especially over in the UK and the EU. But like I said before, there's something that happened today with the United States that has me a little bit sketched out. The Bitcoin community is very hyped up about this, but I, for one, am a little tentative on that. Before we get into that, let's keep on going here about the UK, about how they're leaning more heavily into normal language on migration, right? So everything that we are seeing here is what the UK is lining out. So here's what it all means, right? The proposal is paused and under review, but this would how it would monitor government updates, especially around the next budget. The interest rates are dropping, but they're likely towards the end of this year, and it'll consider locking in higher fixed term and easy accounting stuff soon. The PSA is capped at 1,000, and the banks may suggest investments. Oh, they may suggest where to put your money. So the Bank of England base rate has been recently reduced from 425 down under, right? So their personal savings allowance, the tax-free interest threshold, remains frozen. Higher interest rates have pushed some savers beyond their tax-free allowance, leading to unexpected tax liabilities on otherwise modest interest income. So this is already happening. They're freezing it. They're saying, hey, hold up, pause. We are waiting for this to come out here. So it's very interesting that we're seeing this development come to light, especially with the timing of everything. I mean, we just recently saw search VPNs in the UK absolutely skyrocket in flight because there needs new online verification. So the VPN, the chart of Google search trend is absolutely insane. It's freaking parabolic. So we're seeing the development of all of this, and it's absolutely spiraling out of control. And it's funny because the UK went through Brexit at one point in time, right? Where the Great Britain was exiting from the EU. But it still seems like all of these policies are still very interconnected. The ideology is all still there. This, what we saw, the urgent need to channel retail savings into European capital markets in order to develop those markets and finance EU priorities. Well, that is still there in the UK ideology. That is not slowing down. And the censorship that we are seeing is accelerating. That's why VPNs are looking at this, and people across the UK are turning into VPNs that block their locations to get around the country's new age online verification rules. It requires people to submit identification documents, age estimating, face scans, and financial documents such as credit card checks in order to access everything, right? So the right came into act, and a company, Proton, posted on social media platform X that it hadn't seen signups for its service soar by more than 1,400% in the UK. And I mean, like I said, this isn't just something that's new that's happened in the UK, right? This is something that we've seen. They've been arresting people for memes on the internet for quite some time, and it's accelerating. Right? We had a man rot in Facebook for encouraging riots. He even said, all right, you know what? Like, no offense to this guy here, but Richard David Williams, I doubt you have a big Facebook following. I've never heard of this guy before. I doubt he has enough pull to just rapidly start a riot. And then they were arrested for posting during riots. They've been sentenced to 38 months and 20 months in prison for online stuff. So free speech, say what you want about it, is absolutely dead in the UK. And it shows in the migration patterns. I mean, look at this. The UK has double what any other country, including communist China, has flocking away. The UK will lose the most millionaires due to sweeping tax changes and the closure of investor visas. Look at this. Comparatively, the UAE is seeing a massive flock because of its low density and everything. So people are going to where the incentives lie. Where do those incentives lie? Well, it looks like the UAE. We're seeing money dump out of the UK at a rapid pace. And, you know, we also saw this from the UK not too long ago, that they're working to sell their $7 billion worth of Bitcoin in seized Bitcoin assets. Now, this is all par from the course, right? We saw the top three biggest holders in Bitcoin: the United States, China, the UK. Surprisingly enough, now China allegedly was looking ways to dump Bitcoin, and the UK now has dump their Bitcoin, or is at least looking for ways to dump their Bitcoin. $7 billion worth to pay off said debt liabilities. Now, with that, we've seen Peter Schiff come out and even say, hey, you know what? This is a great plan from the UK. And we should hope that the United States does the same, or the United States doesn't buy up theirs for the strategic reserve. So these developments are really just pushing people out of the UK, and it's not a hyperbole. When you honestly just make it more difficult for people to live, you put more restrictions, you put more handcuffs on people, this is the result that you see. And unfortunately, we are seeing governments still not learn from the lessons that they had. I mean, the UK becoming more strict with freedom of speech was just one small step, and then all of these effects keep on snowballing. And people are flocking to the United States. And I want to put a cautionary note on something that I saw today, and we'll get into that in just a little bit later. So make sure you're sticking around for all of that. But the UK signing this crypto asset bill is another line here, right? That they're saying, hey, you know what? We're going to make it legal status, but we want to draft the legislation. It makes they can be recognized as personal property. But then they also said, hey, if it's personal property and it's left for long enough, we could seize those assets as well. So there's all of these different nuances of these laws that the UK government is secretly coming at you with. And I don't think that's going to be slowing down here. We're going to start to see that continue to tick up, 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 and up. Because the way that the UK government is continuing to, let's say, monitor everything with the Ofcom, because it's the regulator of freedom of speech. So it's not freedom of speech. They are telling you what is going to be acceptable or not. It's overseeing television, radio, telecoms, and internet to ensure fair competition, protect consumers. That's what it's always under the narrative of, is saying, hey, you know what? I am going to protect you. Don't worry. Govern me more, right? It's that meme, govern me more, daddy. Look, don't chop that one for all you sickos out there watching this one. But that's always the meme that we see, right? Is all of these people just looking at the government and saying, hey, you know what? Like, I think you guys could do a better job than me. This is where we need some help. Please help me out more. But the reality is all of you guys in this chat know that this was a bad move. Selling the $7 billion worth of seized assets that are Bitcoin, the hardest asset, the best performing asset of the past 15 years. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Why would you ever sell Bitcoin, especially when there's products out there like my good friends over at Salt Lending, where you don't need to sell your Bitcoin. You could lend against it, borrow against it, use it as the best collateral on the planet, which it is. They're giving an exclusive offer if you go to saltlending.com/green candle. The link is down below as well. You could get rates as low as 8.95%, even maybe get 0.5% off on that for Green Candle listeners only. 12-month duration, 70% LTV. And then they also got the Salt Shield, which is great because if you're worried about liquidation risks, you don't have to worry about it with Salt because they've got the Salt Shield. It gives you assurance that that's never going to happen. You just got to pay a little bit extra every single month. And then on top of that, you won't lose any sleep at night. You could get your cash. You'll just have a little bit more assurance that won't get liquidated because you've worked hard to stack all these sats, folks. And I'm going to help you guys stack some more. So go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle. Get your Lightning wallets ready because if you go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle, you'll get 500 of these. So you'll get one wishing well toss. And then if you buy Bitcoin, you get another one. So these guys are willing to give you some free sats, 298 sats. Make sure you're smoking that like Cheech and Chong and hitting that subscribe button, telling a friend to tell a friend, because you can get free sats every time you come to Green Candle live stream, courtesy of my friends over at Bitcoin Well. All you got to do is show up. And then if you got 50K smackers, you can go to Bitcoin Well Infinite. Just scroll on down. But let's get back to the point at hand here. I know we got the chat blowing up here. All-Nighter Hider saying, people without integrity or strength want to be governed. That is absolutely repulsive to me. I agree with that. Don't make America Britain again. It's spiraling out of control. It's honestly insane. We've got some great guys in here. My legal mentor, John J. Singleton of Ace of Coins, has great content on being uncollectible with the money you may not have exchanged to BTC yet. Hey, man, I agree. You guys always got to be looking for ways to, protect yourself off of a potential downfall. And, Peter Schiff saying this here as an American, it makes me absolutely sick to see that they're going to say, hey, you know what? We hope that the United States doesn't buy up all these Bitcoin. But Everybody is seeing this as major bullish news. Hey, we're going to put everything on a blockchain. The SEC is going to bring its own crypto project and make all markets on chain. Now, I know everybody might think that this is encouraging and positive news, but it's not on Bitcoin, right? They're going to be creating their own blockchain. So similar to the UK, where they want to monitor everything, having everything on a open ledger or a closed ledger where the government is the only one having all of that data and information, well, that's not the best scenario either, folks. Even though I think that this is moving towards a potential 24/7, 365 trading of stocks, bonds, you name it, every single different type of asset class, I think is going to be potentially moved towards a blockchain just so people can, think about, hey, you know what? If I want to trade this stock on Sunday at 3 p.m., I can do that. But the interesting part of this is everybody is jumping for joy on this. Hey, this is absolutely massive. We're embracing Bitcoin. It's a game changer. But I think America being the quote unquote leader of the digital revolution is not the best, let's say. Of course, America wants to go on the free and open market, but having these markets not be built on Bitcoin, having them built on a centralized blockchain, well, that runs into some issues. We've already seen how dystopian the UK can get. And granted, we do have a crypto friendly, president in here right now, but it was not too long ago where this same president was ordering lockdowns. And granted, he wasn't to the extreme of the party following him, but there was things that people got coerced into doing here just 5-ish years ago in the cerveza sickness time, right? And, everybody was kind of, mandated to do different things that they didn't necessarily want to do. So I caution everybody because as we get to a higher, and more monitorable future, like we're moving towards this digital finance revolution, I think that we need to be very careful of this because this project crypto moving US markets onto chain and rewrite token rules, right? They're going to rewrite everything. Most crypto assets are not securities. I mean, I think it's the complete opposite. I think all crypto assets are securities except for Bitcoin. So I think that Gary Gensler did do that right, and he did it for a reason because he was protecting people from getting towards these scammers that we've seen come about. But it's, as TF is saying, it's project crapped. It's ridiculous, right? I don't think that we should that we should see this here where we see Chairman Paul Atkins saying that, hey, they reflect his personal views. He wants clear token definitions and all of these different things. But I think that this is still part of a dystopian potential future, laying out their sweeping plans to accommodate crypto. The head of the U.S. Securities unveiled a sweeping plans to overhaul capital markets on Thursday to accommodate cryptos and blockchains-based trading in a major win. Look, if you guys have been following this channel for a while, I've basically been saying that, the Bitcoin market being 24/65 is going to push all markets to want to get to that because, hey, you know what? The banking system, everything else, it's going to be flipped on the head. You're going to get more access to your money a lot quicker because everybody's going to realize, hey, Bitcoin is better money. Either they're going to build it on Bitcoin or some sort of centralized blockchain. And this is what we're seeing here. They're building it on centralized blockchains, which is not a benefit for the consumer going forward. Let me repeat that one more time. It is not a benefit for the consumer to have these things be centralized because now you give control to all of the different people. Hey, you know what, Brandon, you bought too much meat. Your carbon footprint's too big. You drove too much. You were on the internet for too long. You were screaming too much hot air into this microphone right here. Well, I'm going to cut off your funding supply and I'm going to freeze your investments. So more government is never better government. Even this executing a bail-in operation guide from the UK, what they had lined out 4 years ago, where they have this bail-in period and this resolution weekend. And then, hey, you know what? We're going to, oh, don't worry. People are being negative toward this. We're going to repeal this borderline dystopian policy, right? All of these things that they're saying the quiet parts out loud, right? They're telling you exactly what they're going to do. All of while, we still have Bitcoin humming along at 117, nearly 118,000. And here's the single point of failure that TF is lining out. ETH, Solana, all on Google Cloud, AWS. They can be shut down by the government immediately. And amen to that. Bitcoin cannot be stopped. And if you want to make sure that your Bitcoin is in a secure way, self-custody, make sure it's self-sovereign, that the government can't get to it, go to thebitcoinway.com/greencandle. I know I look like a funeral director here, but this is how you make the death to these policies, the death to fiat, the death to everything negative for your self-sovereignty. You got to go to thebitcoinway.com/greencandle to get that. And keep it humming along, folks, because like I said, even in the US, this thing is getting dystopian. You should be worried about these new things like, the Genius Act and this being all pushed out here very quickly. I know everybody is feeling very positive about these here, but I do think that there is a huge, huge negative of what we are seeing these policies be rolled out very quickly. Gary Gensler, I think, was a friend to Bitcoiners and an enemy to the crypto industry. So I agree with you. I think he would have been a good person to have in here. But regardless, he's not in here anymore. And we still have to deal with some of these negative types of policies that could potentially be harmful for everybody going forward. So be very careful and make sure you guys are smoking that like and subscribing here, because I'm going to be going through all of this in grave detail as these developments take place. So make sure you're telling a friend to tell a friend to join them. Hit the bell notifications in there. And thank you guys all for coming out, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.